were scheduled to be picked up at this one little spot, the end of a road, by a helicopter. They were going to drop us into the wilderness, which, by the way, if you're going to get dropped into the wilderness, that's a cool way to go. We scheduled this trip. It was in Oregon, and we were excited. I had two of my friends with me, and we were so excited about this trip. As we drove to the spot, on the way there, we were trying to find out when we would be able to get on the helicopter. I began to realize, looked up in the hills, and we were going to be there for a week. There was snow all over the hillside. And I realized that the gear that I had was not going to be good enough for what I needed. So we went to the local store. It was a local outdoor store. And I looked around. I tried to find something that would help me once you get dropped in at about 6,000, 7,000 feet with a bunch of snow, and you're going to be there for a week. It's going to be cold. And so I found this hat at this store. It's $75. It's waterproof, has this cool, warm gear on the inside. Now, I'm really cheap, if you know me at all. But this is the only thing they had for what I needed for this cold gear. And I just remember just painfully putting out the credit card and saying, I hope Audrey doesn't notice this, and paying for this hat so that I had a warm hat for the next 7 days. Now, here's what's cool. This has become my favorite hat. Worth every dollar. This is a Sitka hat. It's waterproof and has this cool, and it's so warm. It's awesome. If you're going to go on a trip in the wilderness, 6,000, 7,000 feet, and you're going to be there take this piece of gear. It's worth it. Don't miss it. You know, when I was thinking about this gear today, I picked some other things out. This set of gloves. When I go bird hunting and such, and I'm hiking along, you do a lot of hiking, all that. A lot of times it's just a little too cold for your hands, but you don't want to. These gloves are amazing. They have grips on them. You don't ever have to take them off when you're working on it. When I'm going to do a lot of hiking and I'm out this is the piece of gear for me to take. When we went to Alaska and were dropped off by a plane, and we were miles from anywhere, even though it was above the Arctic Circle. On the gear list of the guide that we had was a pair of pants. They called them down pants. I didn't even know what they were. I began to search online, try and find a good deal, and I bought these down pants for that trip. And whenever we got to some spot, it was really, really cold, I just take these pants out. You just put your legs right through over the boots and everything. And I sat down, and they're just awesome. Now, what's cool about this is now that when I go hiking and camping with my kids and everyone else, and I know they don't have quite as good a gear, I can't wait to pull these out. When they're cold, I put them on and go, how's it going, guys? Like my piece of gear? Don't miss this piece of gear. If you need a light thing that you want to stay warm with, this is an amazing piece of gear. This is my favorite go-to sweatshirt. And there's a lot of reasons. It's a little thicker on the top. It's a little bit rain resistant. It's not, but it's light enough to where it's cool. When I want it to be cool, I can open it way up. It's a piece of Sitka gear, and it's made it has these unique things. You zip it up and it gets warmer. You put a hat on, you can stay warm. You can even put a face mask over your face. Unbelievable. It has these different pockets in here. I love it because you can carry all kinds of stuff in here. I take this with me every time I go on an adventure. Don't miss this piece of gear if you're an adventurer. There's one more piece of gear I want to show you. This is Sitka rain gear. And it's not just any Sitka rain gear. It's the most expensive Sitka rain gear you can get. Now, you say, you got a lot of Sitka gear. Well, we have a little hookup with a Sitka guy who lets us work his guide discount. So I'm always getting a discount on the Sitka gear. And so every year we try and put in an order for the gear. And this is the one piece. And I remember paying for this piece thinking, what in the world am I doing? It is so expensive. But I also remember how great it was when it never failed. It worked so perfectly. When I'm out in the rain for hours and days at a time, I want good gear. And I'm just telling you, if you're going to be in the rain for a long time, this piece of Sitka called Cloudburst rain gear, don't miss this gear. Now, don't get on your phone and do some shopping right now. I'm not asking you to do that. But I am saying to you that there's some gear that if you're going to go on an adventure, you shouldn't miss. Today, I want to talk to you about what you shouldn't miss. Don't miss this. We're reading the One Year Bible together, and for those of you that aren't, I really encourage you, even now, start, even in the last little bit. And as you read the One Year Bible, there's a little old, little new, and little Psalms, little Proverbs, and we're reading through the New Testament, and there's these little tiny books that are actually letters to the church. And a lot of people, when you read them, it happens in just a couple of days. You'll read them and you go, oh yeah, that was interesting. And if you don't be careful, you will miss some important stuff. So for the next 2 or 3 weeks here, what we're going to do is pick the passages in these small letters that we want you to look at to say, don't miss this. Don't miss this. Today, the message is about discovering peace by wearing the right stuff, by having the right gear. Now, why do we need the right gear? And why do we need peace? Can we all agree that 2020 and 2021 has created the most divisive culture that we've ever experienced? Can you imagine before 2020, would you even think about fighting over health issues, ideas like someone that would have, everyone has a different way that they handle their health care. Everyone has a different way that they handle different things. And it's so interesting, but it seems like with COVID, you can't have an opinion. You can't have a differing opinion with each other. It's divided families, it's divided marriages, it's divided grandkids and parents and moms and dads. It's such a divider. And now it's dividing jobs, right? There's all of this. And I don't know about you, but in the midst of all this, man, sometimes we can become so divided that it's like there's no peace. And maybe even some of you today are really, really in turmoil. You know, for us, I'll just confess that through this whole time, when this whole COVID thing started, I don't think I was wearing the right gear. I wasn't ready for it. I was so fearful at the beginning of losing the church, everything we'd worked for, and it just seemed like everyone was staying home, they're going to watch online and never come back, and some of you are watching right now and haven't been back since. And some of you are in your cars. It's such a crazy time. I'm meeting people all the time say, I haven't been out for 18 months, but I watch you every week. And this is such an interesting time. And for me personally, the weight of it was really heavy. And I began to see that things were out of my control. I can't control what you do or don't do. And then on top of that, our culture's out of control. I didn't do any suicide. I didn't do any COVID deaths and no funerals for COVID in the 2020. But we did 7 suicides here in this building, and all of them young people. And I just felt like that the way we're handling everything is actually harming. And then there's our kids' education. My heart breaks for you. Some of you tried to be homeschool parents, teaching your kids at home, and you were terrible. You flunked The kids may have made it, but you flunked. You're so happy kids are back in school right now. You just wear 3 masks, whatever you got to do to get them in there. But then even the mask itself. I mean, come on, let's be honest. 50% of our communication, 56% of our communication comes from facial expressions. And when there's no facial expressions, you lose half your communication. It's much more difficult to teach. I feel for teachers. I feel for students that have lost their ability to communicate 50%. And I worry about this thing that's out of control. And then just the whole, everything. I know for me, it became so heavy, I actually got shingles. I didn't get COVID. I got shingles because I was carrying it so much. Maybe some of you are just like me. I wasn't wearing the right gear. And then there's a political divide. I mean, we've always been a church that has had Democrats and Republicans sitting next to each other, libertarians and all kinds of, it doesn't matter what flavor you are politically, they sit next to each other, they talk to each other. But nowadays, it just seems like there's no tolerance whatsoever for a different opinion politically. And then there's this parental divide. This is kind of crazy. You see YouTube videos of kids coming home and they're schooling their parents on how they are supposed to act and teach them. It's like, this world is crazy. And then there's a marital divide. Man, the stress in marriages, working from home was not a good idea. It is and it isn't. It's wonderful to work from home, no commute and all that, but then you're there. You're just there all the time. There's no, hey, it's good to see you in 8 hours. I'd like to see you again, but it doesn't. Like, go to coffee, go to the grocery store, go somewhere without me. Man, we need peace. So here's my question. What kind of gear are you wearing? That's what this message is about today. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. This verse tells us 5 things that you ought to put on so that you can find some peace. Let's look at it here. It says, since God chose you to be holy people, he loves you. You must clothe yourself with tenderhearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Let me just start over. I read that verse wrong. It says, since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourself with, say this word with me, tenderhearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Now, I want you to get this because I want you to understand. I'm going to talk about each of these 5 things. I don't want you to forget this. So just say them out loud right after me. You repeat them after me. Ready? Tenderhearted mercy. Kindness. Humility. Gentleness. And patience. Now, we need to put on that kind of gear. So what kind of gear are you wearing? I know what happened this morning. You know, moms have this all the time. They see the kids coming in and they say, don't wake up, Grumpy. And they said, well, yeah, he's already up. Don't worry about it. That's about as good a joke as I can do today. So if you don't laugh at it, you're missing out. So every day I'm asking you, wear the right gear. Wear the right gear. What is the right gear? So here, let's take a look at it. The first thing is just recognize that we need to put something different on, that we need to realize that we need to be ready for whatever we face. Every day, my wife and I will go on a walk. We try and walk every day. We don't, probably 5 or 6 days a week. We can't do the exercise with a mask on. It just doesn't work for us. So we've got to be outside. We're going to walk. And you'll see us walking from time to time. And we go through a debate every time when we start out on the day. We look at the weather. Is it raining? Is it cold? Is it windy? What is it like? And there's this debate. I look at her, she looks at me. And I say to her, I think you're wearing too much. And she says to me, I don't think you're wearing enough. And do you think that I can convince her to change what she's wearing? You don't know my wife if you think I can convince her. And do you think she can convince me? No. Guess who is always right? Well, the truth is that sometimes I'm wrong and sometimes she's wrong. But if you were to ask her honestly, she would say, I'm 80% right. So what is the right gear that you're going to wear? Let's prepare for this time that we're in. Let's think about what we put on. Here Paul is writing this letter, and he's saying, if you want to live in peace, if you want to have some peace in your life, you want to have some peace in your home, then get this kind of gear on. Here's the first thing you need to put on: a merciful attitude. It's called Tenderhearted Mercy. In some of the translation, it's translated compassion. See, mercy is an attitude. It's an attitude. Let me describe to you what tenderhearted mercy was like when you first met your spouse. Now, some of you are not married, I realize that, so just think of dating. Maybe you're dating somebody now, or maybe you have a really close friend, but for you couples, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know, I first met Audrey, you know, I saw her and I was tenderhearted, man. I loved her. I just thought this was awesome. And I'd see her, you know, I'd say, we'd be out in the cold and all this, and I'd watch her and I'd say, man, it looks like you're a little cold. Would you like my jacket? That's tenderhearted mercy. I'm thinking that, I'm trying to think, you know, how do I help her? We'd go out to dinner and she'd say, man, you ate that really fast. Are you still hungry? Would you like the rest of my food? Yes. That's tenderhearted mercy. Now, here's what happens now. Honey, you look a little cold. You should prepare a little better. It's gone from tenderhearted mercy to lecture. Honey, are you still hungry? You better order better next time, because you can't get any of my food right now. That's not tenderhearted. See, the reality is this, that all of us, we start with this idea, and especially in a relationship, we start putting on tenderhearted mercy. It's so easy to put on. We put it on every day. And then as your relationship matures, you forget to put it on. So, this is going to be an interactive sermon. I'm sorry. So I'm going to make you do something. You're sitting next to somebody. If you happen to be sitting next to your spouse, this would be good spouse activity. If you're not sitting next to someone, then you have to interact with me. Just going to let you know. If you don't want to interact with your spouse, you're going to see. I can see you're going to be. It's you and me right now. Okay, and we got. Right here, it's you and me. I want you to stick your fingers out. There's 10 fingers here. On a 1 to 10, how much tenderhearted mercy did you put on this morning? Okay. Now, turn to your spouse right now and put the number up that you think you put on this morning. Here we go. Give me your numbers. Here we go. We got a 9 here. We got a 10. He's got 9. Okay, 9. Here we go. You got a 9? Come on. You're not 8. Okay, 8. 10? 9. Okay. You guys are better than you think you are. So here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to get some advice from the person sitting next to you. How much tenderhearted mercy did they put on this morning? Let's be honest. Look at them and just give them a number. Do you agree with their number? What are you wearing today? Okay, so there we go. We're starting here. Now, the second thing. Let's look at the second thing. What's it say? Be humble in your thinking. Right? Tenderhearted mercy, be humble in your. Is that the second one or is that the third one? No, I got to do the second one is be kind in your words and actions. Okay? Be kind in your words and actions. So, kindness is an interesting thing. Kindness means what you say is kind to the other person and your actions are kind to the other person. So all of us know this. Our tongue can kill somebody or can nourish somebody. So what do you lead with in the morning? Let me help you think for a minute. Who's your favorite kid? I know some of you have more than one kid. So just put it in your mind, who's your favorite kid? I know you're not supposed to have a favorite kid, but who's your favorite kid? You're all laughing because you know you have a favorite kid. Okay. So you have a favorite kid. What makes them your favorite kid? It's because that kid has figured out that with their words, they will say things to you that make you feel good. They may not be good kids, but they figured out how. I mean, my brother, I remember my middle brother, Ron, he's probably even watching right now. He could get out of everything because he would get mom and dad laughing. You know, he was always in trouble. He was never any good, but boy, could he talk his way out of it. You know what I'm talking about? Just so nice. Oh, you look so nice, Mom. Oh, Dad, I like that, man. You know, kind words are so powerful. So what do? How many kind words did you put on this morning? Or kind actions? I mean, think about that today. What are you doing with your words and your action? Are you living with kindness in your life? All right. How much did you put on this morning? Right now, either interact with me or interact with your spouse. Really quick. What number, 1 to 10, 10 being a lot, 1 being a little, that's obvious there. So how much kindness in your life, how much you put on it? Okay, give it a shot here. 10. You are a kind person, huh? That's a 5. I love the honesty there. A 5 here this morning. Never got 9. I love this. This is good. 5. Okay, so I think this, if you're going to put one finger up, by the way, you should use your index finger, not... Just saying, be kind. All right, let's look at the next thing. Be humble in your thinking. Okay? Tenderhearted mercy, kindness. Third thing, humble in your thinking. What's thinking? Thinking is the pride. It's so much pride. And we all have this tendency, the nature, our own nature. If we let our nature, we always think we're right. It's just the way we are. Of course I think I'm right, because I'm right. I'm always right. You know, yesterday, my wife and I had to deliver a car to Wenatchee. And so she said to me, she said, well, that'll be a 3-hour drive. And I said, no, it's not. It's a 2-hour drive. To Wenatchee is a 2-hour drive. And I'm driving. And she goes, no, it's a 3-hour drive. No, it's a 2-hour drive. We had this little discussion. 2 hour, 3 hour, goes back and forth, back and forth. I said, shake hands on it. I'm going to prove you wrong. Because I'm humble. Humility is this thing that you have to, even though you know you're right, you have to assume you may not be. And you have to be willing to admit you were wrong. And then eventually humility has to use these words like, forgive me. And we drove to Wenatchee. We had a little traffic. We did not stop at the 59er Diner, and we did not stop at any rest stop. And when we hit the traffic in Leavenworth and tried to go around through the side streets, it didn't work as well as I wanted. But at the end of the day, I want you to know, I admitted I was wrong. I told her it took 2 hours and 28 minutes. You know, we laugh, we talk, we have fun with that. But can we just talk honestly here? Humility and pride is so divisive. And there's just times that we need to allow ourselves to let somebody else be right, or to let somebody else think they're right, or occasionally to admit you're wrong. Forgive me. So, humility. How much did you put on this morning? 1 to 10. Here we go. Turn to your neighbor. How much humility are you wearing today? Be honest now. Here we go. We gotta have. Okay, 5 here. I love that. That's good. He's got a lot of humility on today. That's awesome. How about you? Yeah. 5. All right. Here we go. We got 10. Really? That's amazing. That's amazing. You don't have anyone to check you though. She's watching online. Okay. We'll find out when you get home. So put on humility. Now, let's go to the next thing. Be gentle. Be gentle with your strength. I had a cool moment this morning at the end of the first service. I had a 16-year-old girl come up with a little baby whose name is Luna. And she was there with her parents. And she said, "Would you pray with this baby?" Man, we had this sweet time. And I said, "Whose baby is this?" And she says, "It's my friend's baby, who's 15 years old. And she's in the hospital because she had a terrible time delivering. And she asked me to take care of her baby." And she said, "We want you to pray for this baby." Oh, I mean, my heart. And so I'm just going to say, hey, all of us right now, we're going to pray for Luna, right? Today for that child. I was just thinking about the future for Luna. Now, what does that mean? The reason I even talk about a baby is because if you hold a newborn baby, you know what you see? This baby is so weak. They're so weak, and it's just the weakness of it. And so with your strength, what do you use your strength for? To protect that child. Instead, you can use your strength for good or for bad. And being gentle is using your strength for good. So what are you strong at? What's your strength? You're married to opposites. So in your life, some of you would say, well, I'm really good at the finances, or I'm really good at schedules, or I'm really good at being on time. And they're really not good at being on time. And I'm really good at this. What are you really good at? For Audrey and I, if we have to go somewhere that includes any directions whatsoever, she begs me to drive because she's horrible with directions. If we're going to go out of the grocery store and we're going to go back to the car, almost guaranteed that whatever direction she's turned is the wrong way to go. So what is strength and humility? It's just saying, oh, come on, honey, aren't you glad you married me? You know what my weakness is? Sometimes I make snap decisions. I don't think them all the way through. I bought a 58 pink Cadillac from a neighbor, spent all of our finances. We were going to make all kinds of money. And at the end of the sale, and I'd lost $500, I remember looking at her, and I'd made this snap decision. I hadn't asked her anything. And she had every right to say all kinds of things. That was her strength to think it through. But you know what her temptation would have been? I remember after I selling it, we lost $500 on the whole thing. I remember saying, I bet you want to say, I told you so. But she didn't. That's called gentleness. The discipline to use your strength for good and to admit your weaknesses and allow someone else to help you with your weaknesses. So, how much gentleness did you put on today? Here we go. Give us a number. Here we go. Turn to each other. How you doing? Come on. 2, 10, I like it. 4, a little 4. So you got some work there, huh? All right, I like that. Here we go. We got this number here. What's your number? Here we go. I got 6. I got 8 over here. I like that. Nice. Okay. One last thing. 5th thing. Be patient with your anger. Now, I want to tell you why patience. Patience is all about It's all about dealing with anger. You can tell when some child has matured when they learn how to control their anger. Is it possible that some children have never matured? So what's anger? Anger is that thing that is a natural emotion in all of us that we have to learn to let go. And when you feel the temperature rising, do you have enough discipline to say, I'm going to put that on the shelf and let it cool down for a while before I pick it up because it's going to burn me or it's going to burn somebody? Anger is that thing, that emotion that makes you feel in control and everyone looks at you and says, you are out of. When you're in an argument and one person has the ability to make the other person angry, you know what happens? The first person to get angry loses. And kids are masters at that. Now, I want to tell you, as parents, the temptation, I'll just caution you, don't ever discipline your kids. No matter what kind of discipline you use, don't discipline them out of anger. There's times when they've done something that makes you angry, and that's okay, that's natural. But put it on the shelf for a while before you give your discipline out so they understand that you're doing it in love, not out of anger. Because whatever discipline you choose, doesn't matter what kind of discipline you choose, put them in a corner, spank them, it doesn't matter. Any kind of discipline down out of anger ends up being misinterpreted. So, how much patience did you put on this morning? How much patience did you do? Give me a number. Turn to your neighbor, give a number. Here we go. How much patience? Okay. I love it. 9. There's some of you good. Some of you aren't participating. There we go. I got a 10. I got something out of you guys. Yeah, 10. Here we go. That's good. Now, Colossians goes on. He says, you got to put on the right gear. Okay, once you put that right gear on, he says, now, even though you've got the right gear on, here's what he says. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. No, look at those words. Look at those words. When you go to thinking about this other person's fault, you have to first look at your own faults, and you go to God and you say, God, man, forgive me for sins. We call it grace. Everybody wants grace. No one wants to give grace. Everybody wants to be forgiven. No one wants to give forgiveness because forgiveness is difficult. And what he's saying is that everybody has these faults. Everyone has these cracks, and we all deserve worse than what we've gotten. So because of that, because God has given us grace, we have to give each other's grace. So what does that mean? You have to let people wear the wrong gear. I'll give you an example of these pants. I got up this morning, I put these pants on. And I did it on purpose, I'll just confess, because I know Audrey hates these pants. And she didn't know about the sermon today or anything, so it's like, every time I wear these pants, she goes, I hate those pants. What can we do? Could you wear longer shirts so you cover them up more? Could you, better shoes so you make it? And I love it. One guy says, where'd you get those pants, man? I want some of those pants. And then I had someone in the foyer last service said, I hate those things. I'm with Audrey. It's like, you have an opinion of these pants. What's her? So it's like, there's this opinion. Her opinion is, you're wearing the wrong stuff. A pastor shouldn't wear that stuff up on the stage. And I don't want to, but I will always wait to see, is she going to let me out the door in the wrong pair of pants? And of course she does. Think about this. What's some example of the wrong gear that you can wear? You got to let the other person wear. When you know that they're wrong, when you know that what they think is wrong and you know it and you can prove it and all that, instead of arguing, you let it go. When you know that they messed up, you know what you do? You learn to forgive. When you know that they hurt you, you can be honest about it, but you have to let it go. And you know when they offend you, you forgive them. Here's what marriages that stay together do. They do exactly what that verse says. They don't expect the person that they're married to be perfect. And they make allowances for their faults, and they learn to forgive. That's how you stay together. Colossians 3:14. Above all, you want to know what to put on? Clothe yourself with love. The word love here is agape, which means God's love, which means the love that you have isn't good enough. What you need is God's love. You can't do this on your own. You need God to help you in your relationship. And it says, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. How can two opposites be in harmony together? The right gear, God's love. You need to put on God's love. You need to learn to be generous, to be a giver. To be a giver is to be somebody that understands what God's love. It's the best gear. Now I want to tell you, when you have God's love, it means that you're vulnerable, that you're trusting, and that you're willing to be heard on your own. So, how much of God's love are you wearing? Don't show each other. This is more your own internal question. Because if you have a faith in God, and if you say, I'm pretty good, I met someone in first service, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and I just say, how you doing spiritually? I love his answer. He says, I'm not where I ought to be, and I need to get where I need to go. That's what this is talking about. You won't have peace until you have the presence of God's love in your life. And you have to put that on. And that's why Colossians 3:15 goes on. Let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. For as members of one body, you're called to live in peace and always be thankful. You know what we want? We want peace in our families. And peace comes when you put on the right gear. So just kind of bow your heads for a minute, would you? Whether you're at home or in your car or here, just bow your heads. Just add your numbers up a little bit. Your head. Man, some of you may be naked. You haven't got anything on. You gotta start by just saying, man, I need to put God's love on. I need to start there. And if you're not where you ought to be spiritually, just tell God. He's so ready to forgive you. Ask his forgiveness. Now I want you to think in your mind, what do you need to put on today? Do you need to work on your kindness, on your mercy, on your humility, on your gentleness, on your patience? Let God speak to you. Now I invite you all to stand, would you? We're going to close the service today by a simple movement today. For some of you, that's all you needed to know. You're going to walk out of here, and some of you are going to turn off the online feed and say, man, that's just, I just need to work on some stuff. But some of you need a little bit more. So I want to invite you to do something. We have some prayer team members that are going to be up on the right and on the left, up front. Because we realize today that there's some families that really need to be prayed for. And you're in a tough spot, and we want to be there. We want you to admit that today, and we want to pray for you. So there's first service, we had a number of people for all kinds of different reasons, kids and family and marriages and such. There's some others of you. The candle is in the center of the room today because we were thinking today that maybe before you leave, you need to admit that there's some real turmoil in your relationships. And you simply want to light a candle and say, man, I need God's help. I'm going to pray for that. I'm going to work on that. And for the rest of you today, you're going to go and you're going to work on those things together. And you're going to come back next week and we're going to dig in a little bit deeper to the scripture and apply it to our life. May God bless you as you respond today. May God help you put on the right gear. You're dismissed.